So, in today's video, I want to discuss trend reversals. Also going to touch on the concept of an inverted head and shoulders, which is obviously the opposite of a head and shoulders, excuse me, and then also Bollinger Bands. So let me set the stage. This is Thursday, November 29th, 2018. And to kind of give you a backdrop of this, in the chart before you is the spider, the ETF for the S&P 500. So things chugging along, market continues to push higher and higher and higher, and then all of a sudden we start coming into a trade war with China. The U.S. House was just went from Republican to Democratic, so now we have Democratic control. So now we have kind of a, more of a split Congress, if you will. Um, so there's a bit of uncertainty in the world, if you will, both from a fiscal policy, monetary policy. The Fed is in the process of raising rates, and again, the trade war with China. Excuse me. Those are kind of some big backdrops. Whether that led to the selling or not, who knows? But some pretty significant selling. In this case, the spider went from about 295, call it 300. So the math is easy, down to 260. So it's a pretty good 15% or so drop, which within the context of what the market's been doing for a number of years, 15% is a pretty big move. Last time I think there was such a move like that was, I think we have to go back to like 2010 or so. So just kind of setting the stage in terms of the backdrop here. So we come into a decent sell-off back on October 10th, and you can see some pretty big volume. Come into another sell-off the following day, even heavier volume. So that just tells you there's a lot of people getting out of positions. Then we start to kind of move up a little bit, and then put in another low, so a lower low. Notice though, in this case, volume on this low is actually nowhere near as much as the volume on this prior sell-off. Not that that tells you a whole lot, but volume can give you a little bit of indication. In this context, I wouldn't read into volume too much. So we have a new low, and then we go ahead and rally a bit, if you will, and notice how it kind of comes to this, literally to the same prior high, and then sells off again. But now notice how we actually didn't take out this prior low. So this is your inverted head and shoulders, where this is the head, this would be the left shoulder, the right shoulder, and then this would be your neckline. So now what's happening? So here's what I want to show you, which I think is kind of interesting. So this also is the Bollinger Band. This is a 20 period moving average, and this is the upper and the lower. I believe that's set to 2 standard deviations, but it doesn't necessarily matter for the sake of this video. Price kind of traded along that 20 MA, and then it dropped below it, and then stayed below it, and then kind of hovered around here, finally broke free, kind of going back and forth, if you will, really trying to decide if it's going to be able to trade above or below the 20 MA. But now look what happened on today, and today being the 29th of November. It had a big move higher the prior day, opened green, started to sell off, but look at how it tested the 20 MA, and the 20 MA held, and it started to move a bit higher. So that right there, from a support standpoint, I think is starting to indicate that we're looking at the higher probability of a trend reversal. This head and shoulder pattern right now, it hasn't played out yet. It won't play out until you actually get up to this neckline and break through that. If we do break through the neckline, then typically what you have for a target is the neckline down to the head. And I think that's about 30 or so points. And you'd basically add that up to the from the neckline, that 31 points up. That would essentially be your target in terms of that pattern. I don't necessarily want to say that's that, and these are more probability setups. Head and shoulders and inverted head and shoulders tend to play out a bit, I think, because a lot of traders watch them. So in terms of the overall reversal and kind of what we're looking at, there's things that are indicating that it's a higher increasing probability. And so kind of let me just revisit that. We have this inverted head and shoulders. We also have support we found on the 20 MA. And then lastly is the Bollinger Bands. If you look at here, when prior to the sell-off, Bollinger Bands were rather tight, which always indicates a big move's coming. Whether the move's up or down, no one knows. But when Bollinger Bands get narrow, so see here, they're a little bit wide, and then they start to narrow. When they get narrow, that indicates something is coming. And in this instance, that something was a move lower. And notice how when the market moved lower, how this upper Bollinger Band goes upward and the lower goes down. And that happens for a few days. But now notice as we start coming into, so I guess this first day would be 1016. So roughly a week after that breakout to the downside, notice how the Bollinger Bands now is starting to turn down. And typically in the case of a move lower, the upper Bollinger will turn down first, indicating that the move is starting to lose momentum. If we were trading up higher, then you would see the lower Bollinger start to turn up, indicating the move higher was starting to lose momentum. So kind of just recapping everything, what we have going on here is an inverted head and shoulders. The 20 MA has found support, um, and the upper Bollinger Band is starting to move lower, indicating that the overall move is losing momentum. And again, this is not a guarantee by any means. It's, this business is a game of probability in many ways. And probability is starting to indicate that this market looks like it's starting to turn. And again, you have to put that in the context of all the macro news and everything else that's going on. There's kind of a lag, if you will. Markets tend to are more forward looking, and kind of starting to price in stuff, whether pricing in the trade war with China is going to end or whatever. So anyways, I want to share those inputs, those probabilities with you, and I wish you the best of luck with your trading. Thank you.